Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of Monday, January 27th, 2025. Please be advised a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chambers by the northwest door by which you entered. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a short moment of silent meditation, and please remain standing if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Here we go.
The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda, and under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item must first register and sign in at the table located in the lobby. The council shall require any member of the public addressing council to identify themselves, the name of an organization they represent, and their address, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. Each speaker should state whether they are speaking in favor or in opposition of the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Anyone wishing to speak on that item should come forward after the clerk reads the item and the applicant has presented. And after public comments, the applicant may make one short rebuttal. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month, and this is the last Monday of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda or not planned for a future agenda. We ask that all speakers strive for civility and allow the business of council to proceed unimpeded. Madam Clerk, will you please read the first item of business?
Our first item of business today for our City Council meeting of Monday, January 27, 2025 is our consent agenda, Sections 1, 2, and Sections 3.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak on any of the items on the consent agenda? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Anastasia Finner. I'm waiving my address for my personal safety. I would like to talk about an item that was just placed on file in the office of the city clerk. This is item 2D. It says Administrative Amendment 24082 to change of zone 21075. Wilderness Crossing Planned Unit Development was approved by the planning director on January 10th, 2025 to adjust lot widths and add individual single-family attached dwelling units without increasing the overall density approved, generally located at the southwest corner of First Street and Pinehurst Boulevard. No, absolutely not. I really don't think that it's appropriate to be giving a business that we know has damaged Wilderness Park and Salt Creek anything else that they've asked for. It's really a disappointment that it's come this far and that the planning department has already given them, seems like this go-ahead. Because I don't know if the general public knows, but Lincoln Police decided to side with Manzito construction that was going on in Snell Hill, which was a sacred site, some of the last prairie that was left, Dakota sandstone jutting up from the earth. These trees were bulldozed, run over, because the city council decided that, preserving the land that people like Tom Beckius promised that he would preserve, they didn't. And we have seen the Lincoln Police Department lauded so many times, but I really don't understand how that's possible when there is footage of truck drivers on purpose trying to run over people who were just standing, begging them not to destroy one of the last sacred places around. Snell Hill is gone, and there are people who are trying to protect it that have been harmed, and nothing has been done to heal any of that. It's really kind of a slap in the face to so many people to see these people who, there is evidence, there's footage that has been shared at city council meetings before, showing a lot of runoff running into Salt Creek, this silt that we were promised that was not going to be there. right? Unacceptable. But I'm sure we will see the city council rub their dirty hands together and allow this to go through, because they clearly stand with, the people that are trying to run people over with giant trucks instead of the people that are actively trying to save the land, which it is a living thing. I don't know if any of you have seen what was Snell Hill, which was beautiful, and what it is now, which is barren, regraded garbage. So no, as someone who is opposed from this from the beginning, this is ridiculous. It's what part of me is like not surprised that they didn't have their shit together enough to like ask what they wanted for in the beginning, but I think it's really disheartening to see just like this nonsense colonialism continue to like rear its head. I'm not surprised, but I am disgusted. And I think that everyone should know that, that's exactly what happened. People were ignored. The city of Lincoln stands behind the people who would rather see people run over with a giant truck than to actually see a small bit of land be preserved and cared for the way that it should have. I will take the rest of my time as a moment of silence for that loss.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who'd like to make a comment on an item on consent? 1, 2, or 3? Seeing no one coming forward, we can proceed.
We can now vote on these items on consent agenda. Items 2A through 2C were introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson. Is that the sign-in sheet? Okay, all right. Any discussion?
No.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Beckius,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Let's move forward to Section 4, liquor resolutions.
I'll call items 4A and 4B together. Application of Pat on Tap LLC doing business as Pat on Tap for a Class DK liquor license located at 2124 Y Street, Flat 139, and the related manager application of Abby Miller.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Abby Miller. I'm from Mead, Nebraska. My address is 28 North Vine Street, Mead, Nebraska. I'm here for a liquor application for Pat on Tap. I started an event rentals company about technically 2.5 years ago, and the basis was it was a pickup, that 1957 Chevy pickup that I restored with my dad and some friends. That's how it started, pretty humble beginnings, but we're growing to be, we are the first Nebraska tap truck, but growing to be one of Lincoln and Nebraska's most premier event rental brands. So we started as event rentals, so that means I used to take a truck with equipment that could cool alcohol and other drinks to events, and I would drop the pickup off. I would help clients set it up. That's how the event business ran. So for example, I would have served Cornhuskers, their football team. I actually served them 3 times in an event for Governor Pillen, and those were some events that I did. All a dry bar, so it means was not bringing alcohol. I set the Essentially, like I describe it as a large Gatorade cooler, and we fill it up, and that's what I do. As we move forward into 2025, I'm ready to expand my offerings of the business, and a really important piece of that will be having a liquor license for essentially 2 reasons. The first reason is that there's a lot of very low risk mall events. It'd be a lot easier if I could drop just a single keg off with instead of asking other businesses to meet and come at the defined times, worry about, if a keg is shaken up. So that's kind of reason number one. Really small, low-risk events that I need to bring a keg or two to. The second reason is I would like to expand into offering services for cash bars and public events. Right now, I only do private events that don't serve drinks. But for example, I was hired by the UNL Homecoming Committee to do their Cornchella. So I did 1,500 mocktails, which are essentially punches, 1,500 of those drinks in 3 hours. So I'm really efficient at serving those drinks. So I'd like to be able to serve or for like the College World Series, for example, be able to post up there. I think that would be a great thing. Overall, those are kind of the 2 main reasons. The biggest question I always get asked is, risk. It looks like, people can just go serve themselves a bunch of alcohol. It's no different than any of the way the bars are operating now. And the events that I do are generally low risk. I'm not posting up on the outside of O Street on a Saturday night. I'm posting up at corporate parties or private events, usually that they just need help getting liquor to.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a great explanation of your business. Counselors, are there any questions?
Yeah, I just have
Councilman
one
Weber.
question. So I'm curious about this concept. Do you drive the truck itself to location, or how do you get it there?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It is drivable. I've actually driven it. I'm from Meade. I had an event in Wahoo. So I actually drove it to Wahoo. It took like half an hour.
Yeah.
It goes 55 miles an hour and doesn't have great brakes. So we do trailer it just more for safety reasons for everybody involved. So we do trailer it. It can drive. Same thing. I don't know what I can say. I have like a Cushman as well, so it's kind of fun. It was actually this Cushman would have been built in the same building as I'm getting the liquor license. Kind of fun full circle event. It was actually where my first dollar was made. Kind of fun little story. But yeah, so then obviously that's also trailer because it only goes 30 miles an hour.
That benefits from our roads. That's
Yeah,
always good
so-
to hear.
Nice segue. All right. If there's no other comments.
Sounds fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak on this item, either in support or in opposition? Seeing no one coming forward, Madam Clerk, let's move forward.
I'll call item 4C and 4D together. Item 4C and D is application of HVP Queen Nails LLC, doing business as Queen Nails for a Class I liquor license located at 111 North 27th Street, and the related manager application of Hua Fan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Microphones are on either side.
Oh, you do.
Yes. Everyone makes
Yes,
sense.
my name is Alan Nguyen Compton on behalf of the owner of the Queen Nail Salon. You see it on the back, on the end on the left side. So he interested. We apply for liquor license Class I. It's mean we try to using the really light liquor.
Okay.
It's mean wine less than 20% to offer free to the customer. Try to entertain people come in to do the nail, manicure and pedicure, and relax. In 2 hours or 4 hours max. We don't want to be troubled, and then that's the way the
All right.
owner of the nail salon interests, and then the reason we filed application, and then I on the behalf of him to
Okay.
can answer any question. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from other counselors? I think your business model seems to be growing in popularity. A
Thank you.
glass of refreshment when your
Yes.
nails are being done.
Yeah. Thank you much.
Thank
very
you.
much. Yeah, thank you. Every day.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on this application, either in support or in opposition? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Madam Clerk.
Item 4E is application of Kincaid Brewing Company LLC, doing business as Beer House Mashler for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 235 feet by 135 feet at 151 North 8th Street on February 22nd, 2025, from 8 a.m. to 11:55 p.m.
Welcome, Mr.
Counsel.
Schmidt.
Just back before you today, this is our Bachfest, kind of our winter Oktoberfest. driving some people out in the cold to drink some beer. We're going to try to just do it during sunup, so 11 to 6, and then move off the streets after that. We've had some big events. Drove, I think last year was about 2,500 people on this event, which is pretty cool, down in the Haymarket there. So be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does anyone have questions about drinking beer on a cold day outdoors?
What's the attire? Is there a
Yeah, so people can still definitely wear like lederhosen and
Lederhosen,
dirndl,
okay.
but because it's the cold time of the year, kind of the thing with the Bach is the goat. And I don't know if you've ever seen on some of the old German ads, there was always a goat in the advertisement of this style of beer. So what we do on this event, it's all around that style of beer. We actually get hot irons and we poke it into that beer, and it caramelizes the sugars in that beer and kind of gives you almost like a marshmallow fluff on the top. It's really cool, but the horns kind of come in on that. So there's going to be people with like helmets and stuff and big fur coats and things like that as well. So
not branding goats?
no, no goats. Yeah.
Will goats be at the party?
No live goats at the
Okay,
party.
no live goats,
Yeah.
all right. Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming down
Yeah, you bet.
tonight. Has this been communicated, the plans, have they been communicated to the neighbors
You bet.
or downtown residents?
Yeah, so we before we get the license, we have to go around and get some signatures. So we got a signature on the 2 buildings that it affects the
Yep.
most. The building just to our south, there's some residential.
Yeah.
When we first started it, we definitely stressed them a little bit on this, but we've built that relationship, text with them, let them know when all of our big events are, so they know all of our things for the rest of the year. They asked us to make a couple concessions, kind of where we put the stage, things like
Yeah.
that. But I think we're in a good place with them. so.
Awesome. I appreciate that open line of communication and compromising
We wanna
with
be
the
a good neighbor,
residents. Yeah,
for
I
sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Show.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the hours of operation. You said 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.,
Yeah,
correct?
well, the license goes longer just because we
Yes.
have setup and tear down, but we're advertising 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, yep,
Reasonable time in the morning when it gets warm?
Yep.
Right as the sun goes down?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to be clear on that.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none?
Thanks, council.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak either in support or in opposition of this application? Seeing none? Madam Clerk, let's call the next.
I'll call item 4F, application of McKinney's Pub LLC, doing business as McKinney's Irish Pub for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 60 feet by 120 feet at 151 North 8th Street on March 15th, 16th, and 17th from 1 p.m. to 11:55 p.m.
Good evening and welcome, Mr. Shaw.
Joel Shasso, McKinney's Irish Pub, 151 North 8th Street. Similar to what we've done the last number of years, with the exception of the date changes. I know it says the 15th, 16th, and 17th. We're actually only doing the event on the 15th and the 17th. We requested through the events team to shut down the road all 3 days so we wouldn't have to take the tent down and put it back up. So we would have the tent up the entire time, but not have anything in the tent on Sunday the 16th.
Okay.
So we would have the 15th open to the general public. Everybody, most people have days off. For the people that have to work on Monday and can't come out on St. Patrick's Day itself, we have it open for the hardcore St. Patrick's Day crowd.
All right. Do any councilmen have questions? Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair Washington. Mr. Shasso, do you foresee a need for any council members to be in attendance there, or just to clarify?
I would like to have everyone to the left.
Yeah,
of-
yes, yeah. Well, I'm available
or
if that
Councilman
need
Weber
arises. Yep.
is welcome.
It's hard math, don't it?
Yes.
Already has a green blazer.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
you
already
wore
right
green
in the
today.
spirit.
Everyone in the community is more than welcome,
Yeah.
Councilman Weber.
Looking forward to it.
All right. All right. If you have nothing, if there are no other questions, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak either in support or in opposition of this application?
Madam Chair, seeing no one coming forward, I'd like to make a motion
All right.
that we approve items 4A through 4F.
Second.
Second, Weber. Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Beckius,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Let's move on to public hearing resolutions.
I'll call item 5A, appeal by Jason Schwink, approval of special permit 24009 to allow for a garden center on property generally located at the east side of North 56th Street between Bluff Road and Waverly Road.
All right. Would the applicant come forward? And so, all right, hi.
Hello, Jason Schwenk, 11250 North 56th Street. My property, my acreage that I've lived on for 12 years joins the property line with this landscape company. A few of my concerns would be shared access with my property. So people coming into this landscape company would more than likely, you know, a few of them would come down my drive also, which, you know, would obviously be kind of an issue with me and my wife. Not to mention that access is off of Highway 77 there, which, you know, is 70 mile an hour, 4-lane traffic. It's not really set up for a business like that, for trucks to come in and out. Just up the road for me, there's been several fatal accidents in Waverly and Highway 77. Just pretty much asking for more of that if something like this was allowed. Pretty much all that was discussed on the first hearing, but just thought I'd, you know, bring it forward again. And then some of the conditions that I wanted to go over was some of the conditions that were agreed on the first thing were some of the screening. Well, there was one said every 100-foot linear, 15-foot apart, 5-foot evergreens, which, I mean, that's fine, but that's not really going to amount to any screening for several years, really, to block any view of anything. The other thing would be, since I'm half owner of that approach, I'd like to be part of the design and approval for the approach.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I got.
So you're asking, I mean, you've appealed the decision of the Planning Commission, and you're asking that that you be a part of the design?
Yeah, well, I'm opposed to the whole thing.
You're opposed, so yeah, I'm trying to understand
Yeah,
completely
it's
your-
already been passed, but, you know, I'd like you guys to reconsider that.
All right, the appeal process, I mean, you've filled out the paperwork. The appeal process is that we will look at this application as if it's brand new to us.
Okay,
And so we will look at it and make a determination on whether or not it's approved or not approved.
okay.
And are you asking anything else besides that?
Just, I mean, we went over a lot of stuff on the first hearing. Do you want to hear that again?
We have the material in front of us, but would anyone like to hear this?
Yeah, I would.
Fresh? All right,
Okay.
please.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of concerns, but, you know, the major ones would be the shared access, you know, with the public company like this coming in and out of the drive that shares with my acreage that I've lived on for 12 years. Not to mention the danger of, you know, vehicles pulling in and off of the highway, that's 70 mile an hour traffic there. Also, you know, it's not concrete coming in and out of our places, so you know, I know the guys that are talking about doing this landscape company talking about rock, but you know, when it rains, I'm sure that rock's going to be pulled out onto the highway with that much traffic going in and out. Dirt and dust pollution, you know, coming from landscape company type place is going to be, you know, coming over onto my property and my house. Also, lights from the landscape, which I think they said was going to be, you know, to a minimum, but you know, I'd want some kind of screening to block that from my house and this place. Water runoff, all the water coming off that property pretty much comes onto my property. So if there was any kind of runoff from, you know, whatever they're producing over there would end up on my property. noise from equipment, that there might be landscape equipment, you know, being out on acreage, I kind of like the peace and quiet. That's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes.
Thank you for coming down today. I appreciate it. The primary question that I had for you is, according to the Planning Commission notes, Commissioner Campbell introduced several amendments to try to find a resolution here. But I think the one thing that I really want to talk to you about a little bit is the resolution that I believe was passed by the Planning Commission regarding to the driveway specifically, the T-shaped driveway. But I think that you're also going to be included in terms of the design of that driveway. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I would
As it
definitely
stands
want to
today?
be. Yeah, but you know, I'm not sure that a T is going to work for my access because I come in and out of there. I pull a fifth wheel camper and boat.
Sure.
So you know, I'm not going to want like 90-degree turns.
Yep.
I got a nice curved drive coming in there, so I'd be, you know, definitely want to be part of that design.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead,
What
Councilman
was in
Dean.
that field before?
It's just farmland right now.
Farmland?
Yeah, and it's
So that
zoned as
did that
ag.
create dust as well, though?
Yeah, when they harvest, yeah. But, you know, that's planting and harvesting's twice a year versus a daily thing.
The area is zoned ag, I think, right now?
Yeah, and I think it's trying to get zoned as special ag, which apparently that allows a landscape company to start on it.
Okay. Well, I think there's a permit. I didn't see special ag, but I'll take a look at it again. All right. So if I'm summarizing, your issues with the application are the shared drive and the design of that, drainage, light pollution or light spillage from their use, water and drainage and how that flows. And then you have some concerns with screening, noise, and
just the view.
the view, and
Yeah,
then,
from my
okay,
property.
view from your property, and then pulling off the highway. Can you talk a little bit about, you, I guess, currently pull off the highway?
Yeah. So I mean, that's 70-mile-an-hour traffic coming both ways, 4-lane highway. So you got to be very careful. And like I said before, there's been numerous accidents which I pulled up. I mean, I pulled up just 4 of them in the last 7-8 years. Fatal accidents that are right on Waverly Road right there, which half a mile from our property.
Yeah.
So this would just be adding, more of that, danger pulling on off that highway.
And I think the planning commission had said that, that a traffic study would be done?
I didn't hear that from the planning commission. I believe that's from Department of Roads, which I've talked to, and that they're saying that that's not set up for this type of commercial business.
Well, the Department of Roads isn't on the record of suggesting denial on this. So I think we'll ask the planning director a couple of questions to make certain that we have all the information in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah. We may ask you to come back for a rebuttal.
Okay.
That's your prerogative. Councilman Shob, would you like to?
Nope, I'm
Okay.
good.
So I think we'll ask the planning director perhaps to come forward, or the property owner whose business. I think we'll want to speak to both.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for bringing it forward, and
Bet.
don't leave.
All right.
We may need to ask you a couple more questions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Blaine Price, 17645 Southwest 27th Street, Myrtle, Nebraska. I am applicant for the permit of the special permit. I guess we'll just start with questions because I think you guys are going to have a couple.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your plan for your business and the hours you hope to operate, and kind of materials and things.
So hours of operation are set to be 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. There was talk of maybe like an 8 to noon on Saturday mornings. Don't know if we'll do that yet or not. And then as far as materials, there'll be a lot of nursery stock. Then like all your decorative stones, sand, gravel, pretty much all your aggregates. Just general landscaping supplies, in that nature, and then, yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from councilors? Councilman Beckius.
Hi, thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. So can you talk a little bit about the driveway, the shared driveway access, and what was agreed to at the Planning Commission between you and your neighbor?
So as far as I know, George Russell Hoff, he had laid out something as a T-shaped driveway and or just doing a wide 40-foot access all the way to where the property lines start.
Okay.
And then from after that gets all paved in there, then it would be up to each one of us to just do whatever we need to get it to flow off of there. And I told George, I said, that's not a problem. I can make whatever work with Jason that we need to, because I understand pulling vehicles in and out. I got trucks coming in and out of our place every day, so I understand getting trucks in and out and bigger vehicles in and out of a place like that. So, yeah, and I guess that was the two options that they'd kind of thrown out there, but they, George pretty much told me that once the actual land permit process goes through, then we'll figure out the driveway and all that. He wasn't going to get crazy with the state of Nebraska and all that stuff until the permit was all passed.
For me, your willingness to work with your neighbor on this driveway issue, I think is going to be paramount for me.
Okay.
So I appreciate you being willing to work through that issue. The only other question I had for you as well is that you also submitted a plot plan for the property along with your application, which showed that the majority of the material stored on the north side is going to be parking, your shop, and tree, and then the tree material. Then the majority on the south is going to be your bulk material, your mulch, your what have you. That plot plan is also really important to me to make sure that we're trying to provide additional non-nuisance items up against your property's neighbor line as well as best we can. So if we could stick to that, I would really appreciate it too.
So I guess I got one more thing on that too.
Yes, sir.
So in the 100-foot setback from all of our property lines, now we are going to do all of our tree rows and nursery stock in those rows as pretty much a 100-foot buffer of screen. They will be in rows, obviously, but there'll be that much more of a buffer in all of that instead of just grass.
I think that's okay. I think primarily what I'm trying to get at is I don't want necessarily mulch, other material in that not only the setback but also abutting the north property line setback as well, just so that we can try to limit the amount of dust and contaminants that would naturally occur from your business operating there.
Yep.
Absolutely. If we could just keep that to the south side, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Duden.
I was going to ask, how big of a building are you talking about putting there?
So I think George told me I need to have 900 square foot of like storage and then another 500 square foot of like office. So 1,500 square foot altogether.
So will the public be going in and out of this location?
Yes.
And this was zoned agricultural before?
Yes. And under the special permit for a garden center, George said this was all good to go.
That's all I have. I got some questions for David Carey.
I have one question for clarifying. I know that screening is important to your neighbor, and it was a part of the conversation at the Planning Commission. With your moving your trees for sale, your row trees, in that 100-foot setback, there was also one of the options or one of the additions to the permit was adding evergreen trees along the north property line. So would those trees still be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the minimal amount of tree screen will still be there, and then we'll have rows of trees on top of that in those. So there's a 100-foot setback right now. Usually your evergreens at the base of them will get to 15 to 20 foot. So then our rows would start after that. So we'd end up with a 70 to 80 foot long row of trees after that. So the evergreen row will be there, and then we'll start our rows of trees after that.
Okay. And your neighbor also had some concerns with the fact that when you plant that sort of the partition trees, that they're not going to be full grown, and so it won't be very much coverage at the very beginning.
Yep.
And since you're going to be in the tree business, I'm assuming you understand trees. So,
Yep.
Can you estimate for us how many years it'll take from? I think there was a 5-foot minimum. So you've agreed to plant 5 trees at 5 foot evergreens. So can you tell us how many years will your neighbor wait to see
So
them?
after a tree's established, you should get 6 to 8 inches of growth out of a year, and a tree should take 12 to 18 months to get established. And then after that, because they obviously go through a little bit of transition when you transplant them there. And then after that, they'll grow to 6 to 8 inches a year, fairly easily. There's certain species of trees that will grow more than that, but that was also what our other process with putting all the other trees in there is. Then we'll have some oaks and maples and all that that'll be 10 or 15 foot tall on the back side of all these evergreens that'll hopefully create more of a screen sooner than later than the evergreens along the property lines.
Okay. So within about 4 years, you should expect to see a 5-foot evergreen go to maybe 7.5 feet.
Yep, 7.5, 8 foot, I would say so.
Thank you.
Yep.
If you wouldn't mind stepping aside, we're going to talk to
Okay.
Director David Carey, but we may have more questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Director.
Good evening, David Carey, Director of the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street.
All right. Could you summarize the agreement that, or the permit that the Planning Commission approved with the options?
Sure. I would want to, a little point of clarity. So Mr. Schwenk, who is the appellant, is not the applicant. So when it comes to rebuttal, the applicant actually would get the rebuttal.
The applicant will get the
Yes.
rebuttal, not the person who's
Correct.
appealed it.
I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you.
This special permit is before you to act on, so it is as if the applicant kind of brought it forward, even though the appellant is the one that had it come forward to the city council. Just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah.
I think the best way to talk about what conditions were recommended by the Planning Commission is in the resolution from the Planning Commission. And I can kind of just walk through that if that sounds okay. So there's 3 main pieces to this that they added on to the approval for the special permit. So this is ag zoning. Within our zoning regulations, we have an option for this type of operation, a garden center, to be approved by special permit. So that is something that is required to go to Planning Commission for approval, and if it is not appealed, it is final action at Planning Commission. So it was appealed, so now it is in front of you. But so this is a use that is allowed in ag zoning by special permit. The approval that was, the conditional approval that was provided as a recommendation to you now by the Planning Commission includes the additional requirement to revise the site plan to add a T-shaped or similar driveway designed to the east of the property line for residential traffic to the north and commercial traffic to the south, up to 40 feet in width, subject to the county engineer's approval. So the county engineer would be involved in that process to identify that it was done adequately and appropriately. And from what I'm hearing is that there's some discussion about some coordination with the appellant as well as the applicant. So that's something that perhaps we can discuss further. In addition to that, there would be 2 signs installed, one for the garden center and one for the residential traffic, to clarify which direction to go once you're off the highway and going into either the residence or to the landscape supply location. The third piece of this is the screening part, which was just discussed. And so that gets into the specifics of the spacing and the minimum 5-foot height at time of planting for the evergreen. So those conditions of approval are effectively in front of you as a suggestion from the Planning Commission already. So, assuming that you are still of the opinion that those should be part of an action, that you could reference that as well. So that's kind of an overview of what was recommended by the Planning Commission.
And would you say that if we were to identify them as option 1, option 2, and option 3, that was clear as the Planning Commission has set them up?
Yeah, well, I would say the easiest way to talk about it now is that all 3 of those requirements are in the recommendation for approval. That's how they acted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Councilors? Councilman Didden.
Mr. Graham, I am surprised that they will allow something like this with Highway 77 being a 70-mile-an-hour zone. And I'm surprised that there isn't a acceleration lane or a de-acceleration lane to turn into this driveway. People pulling in there with trailers, hauling material out, trees, boulders, mulch. They're not going to be able to kick it up to 70 miles an hour very quick. It just seems like it would be a huge hazard. And I'm kind of surprised that, was there any consideration about having some kind of a service lane or separate driveways, that sort of thing? Is that discussed, or?
So this is a state highway.
Right.
It has limited access as such. The state DOT was given this information. There was no real response as far as a needed improvement, as well as there really wasn't an option to locate a different access point because of the limited access status of the highway. So this is the access that we need to work with at this location if we're going to do something with it. And therefore, that's where we got into the conversation about how best to design the driveway so that both the traffic there's clarity on where the traffic is to go, whether it's the residents or the landscape operation, as well as to kind of have some spacing there, some width to it, so that traffic can get in and out of there.
So, and they'll accomplish that a little bit with some signage for, this is a private drive, this
Correct.
is
Yep.
the business drive type of thing. And that's the only issue I really felt. I can't picture a business like this being next to a 70-mile-an-hour roadway. I can see it where it's 45, similar to what we have on South 14th Street. There's a
Sure.
Outdoor Solutions, is out there. There's nothing like this business, I don't think, on the north side of town.
I can't say that for with full confidence, but I think you're right.
But yeah, I thought about that too, and I thought, well, yeah, the north side needs a business like this, absolutely. But well, I'm just how far north of the interstate is this?
Get my handy map out.
Is this really close to the edge of the city limits, or?
No, it's not. It's a few miles out from the city limits. This is about half a mile north of Bluff Road.
Okay.
So it's not. It's about a full mile outside of city limits.
Okay.
And the reason why it's in front of you is this is within the city's jurisdiction.
Okay.
So.
Within that 3 mile.
Correct.
Thing. Okay.
In the report that you gave us, I was searching for that deceleration lane because I thought I read something, and on page 3 or 5, depending on which pagination you're looking at, it said a northbound after having spoken with Sierra Catlin District Highway Permit Officer, a northbound deceleration lane may be a requirement to use the existing drive for commercial use. But NDOT indicates that no second access is not possible.
Right.
So they may, at some point.
Add that lane.
Yeah. Director Carey, do you know if there is a paved shoulder there?
I believe there's a paved shoulder. I wouldn't be able to tell you right now how wide that is, but yes, I think there's a paved shoulder.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right, I see no other questions from my counselors. Is there anyone else here tonight who'd like to speak on this application, either in support or in opposition? All right. And we will move forward. Madam Clerk, let's move to the next item.
I'll call items 5B, 5C, and 5D together. Items 5B through C, directing submittal to the qualified electors of the city a proposed ballot question for the April 8th, 2025 primary election to continue the local sales tax rate of sales tax rate of 1/4 cent of an 8-year period to be used for street rehabilitation, reconstruction, and improvements of existing neighborhood and arterial streets in all quadrants of the city to maximize their useful life, enhance safety, streamline traffic flow, or promote private sector investment. Item 5C is approving a resolution freezing impact fee increases due to inflation for a period of 8 years in the event that a 1/4 cent sales tax renewal is approved by the voters of Lincoln. And item 5D is approving an interlocal agreement between the city and Railroad Transportation Safety District for use of not less than 1.5% of the continued 1/4 cent sales tax, if approved by the voters of Lincoln, related to the engineering and construction services for the 33rd and Cornhusker Safety Improvement Project.
A lot of words to say what we're going to talk about.
Welcome, Director Elliott.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities, and here to talk to you tonight about these 3 items and to provide a little more information. And along with me is John Carlson as well to help with any questions or part of the presentation. So, excited to have 3 items before you tonight. The main item, and all the other 2 kind of rest on this main item, is a resolution to place the question whether to continue the Lincoln on the Move program on the April 8th, 2025 ballot to allow voters to decide whether or not Lincoln on the Move should continue. With that, the other 2 items is a resolution freezing the inflationary adjustments to impact fees only if the first item is approved by voters, Lincoln on the Move. And then finally, third is a resolution creating a new interlocal agreement between the city and the Railroad Transportation Safety District for a final engineering and construction of 33rd and Cornhusker project. And again, this resolution would immediately dissolve should the voters not pass the Lincoln on the Move initiative. So just want to kind of explain what exactly do we mean by continuing the Lincoln on the Move initiative. So the first question places the question on the April 8th ballot for the voters. And really, before we dive in, I want to just step back and say, what is the current Lincoln on the Move? So in 2018, a coalition of residents, business owners, and community leaders identified a $33 million annual gap in our street investments. A year later, our community helped bridge that gap, voting in favor of a 1/4 cent sales tax to commit more funding and investment into our streets here in Lincoln. Through the 1/4 cent sales tax, which we have shortened to Lincoln on the Move, we've been able to reduce that $33 million annual gap by over $18 million. This existing program that was voted in 2019 expires this September 30th. So this resolution before you goes back to the voters and asks them whether or not they want to see this program continue. This continuation would not create any new costs for Lincoln taxpayers. It would simply continue the 1/4 cent funding that is already in place. So when it expires September 30th, the continuation would just pick up on October 1st. The continuation would run for 8 years instead of 6. The current program will have delivered $102 million by the end of its 6 years. So a continuation for 8 years would deliver a little over $140 million in additional street improvements across the entire community. The big thing that I want to talk about is this proposal keeps the same guidelines and restrictions of the current Lincoln on the Move program. Specifically, the funding breakdown would continue the same, with 73.5% of all Lincoln on the Move revenue going back into existing streets. 25% of the revenue would go back into growth to continue helping our community grow. And then 1.5% of those funds would go into the Railroad Transportation and Safety District project at 33rd and Cornhusker. The one thing I want to make clear is that this Lincoln on the Move revenue does not pay for traffic signals, crosswalk markings, sidewalks. It also does not pay for bike lanes, curb ramps to meet ADA accessibility requirements, or paying back our debt, our bonds, or any other non-paving project. I'm not saying that those things would not happen as they do now with as part of a Lincoln on the Move project, but those components of any project will be paid for with other street funding, such as highway allocation funds or our vehicle improvement tax. The implementation of Lincoln on the Move has been a game changer for our community. It is an investment that has reached every corner across our community and has allowed us to improve our infrastructure and elevate the overall quality of our life, and do so faster and less expensive for our community. Across our community, the $102 million has been invested or will be, looking forward to the next year, in 65 street improvement projects in all quadrants of the city. 1 penny in sales tax on a $4 cup of coffee and a donut creates over $18 million in annual street improvements. Those improvements are making Lincoln safe, increasing economic opportunity, and saving us all money in the long run. With good streets, we're able to enhance public safety. It allows first responders, like our fire trucks and our ambulance, to get to their location when every second counts. Being able to drive across to those calls without bumpiness or potholes that they have to slow down for ensures that they get there as soon as possible to help protect our community. Investing in our streets increases economic opportunity and supports our housing needs. We're able to strengthen Lincoln's ability to attract tourism events. And one of the biggest components of having a sales tax initiative like this is that 30% of the Lincoln on the Move sales tax funding comes from visitors. So this is something that it's not just on Lincoln residents. This is by everyone who uses our streets, whether they're coming here to work, coming here for state basketball, or just living here driving our streets. Our goal with Lincoln on the Move is to continue to grow the great life here in Lincoln. The other big thing is that by being able to invest in our streets sooner, we are able to provide these projects at less expense. As we all are becoming unfortunately familiar with, we are seeing an average of 5% annual inflation on construction costs. So being able to do the construction projects sooner saves the taxpayers money, and our dollar goes farther in making these improvements. With Lincoln on the Move, the city is completing 5 times as many projects in a year with Lincoln on the Move than we could without it. Nearly 163 lane miles of smoother and safer streets have been invested across our community. And those are spread out equally in all of our districts. And those improvements will have lasting impacts. And as we can see, in year 1, we did a little over $10 million investments. Year 2, we added another $15 million. With year 3, an additional $16.8 million of investments across the community. Year 4, a little over $18 million investments. Year 5, which we are just wrapped up, over $19 million of investments. And in the final year of this Lincoln on the Move program is an additional $22 million that will be improved this summer and into 2026. So as you can see, with each year, we've been able to put significant investments, and it adds up with $102 million in 6 years. All this ends on September 30th, when the current Lincoln on the Move initiative expires. So with the resolution before you today, an approval of it would allow it to go to the voters to ask them on the April 8th ballot whether they want to see this investment continue into the streets here in Lincoln. There would be no increase in taxes. We would continue what's already there. It would be an 8-year program, and the same street investment strategy would be implemented. All quadrants of the city, the same breakdown, 73.5% to existing, 25% to growth, and 1.5% to RTSD. And by voting for it, the resolution, it would allow voters to decide. The second resolution is freezing the inflationary increase on impact fees. Those impact fees extend beyond the streets. It includes water, wastewater, parks, as well as the street impact fees. So if voters approve continuing Lincoln on the Move in April, impact fees would stay at their 2025 rates for 8 years to coincide with the continuation program. What that means, what's the impact of impact fees freeze? There would be over the program, the current 6-year Lincoln on the Move program resulted in about $3.1 million not collected in impact fees, but it returned over $102 million in the sales tax. A reminder on this one, this would not go into effect if the voters do not approve the Lincoln on the Move quarter-cent sales tax initiative. Resolution number 3. This is the new interlocal agreement with the RTSD. This allows for us to see the 33rd and Cornhusker project through construction. 1.5% of Lincoln on the Move revenue would go directly to this project and would be part of the matching funds for a recent grant that we recently received. Now, this interlocal would automatically dissolve should the Lincoln voters choose not to continue the program. And just kind of an explanation of what is the 33rd and Cornhusker project. This is a significant project that greatly enhances the connectivity and the safety of those who travel and live in this area. Right now, our traffic operations in this area are inadequate and delays are excessive because of passing trains that block North 33rd Street, Adams Street, and North 44th Street for 3.6 hours a day. Lincoln Fire and Rescue is forced to prioritize and take different routes around the train to get to their service calls. From December of 2021 through July of 2024, LFR responded to more than 650 incidents that required them to cross those railroad tracks. With 46 trains a day in this area, it has a significant impact on how quickly LFR can get to calls in this area. With this 1.5, it is part of matching funds to a railroad crossing elimination grant that we just received within the last few weeks to allow us to match the $66.7 million grant award that was awarded there. This ensures that we have those matching funds to get that project completed and that connectivity and that traffic flowing for the responders. So in summary, those are the 3 resolutions associated with asking the voters if they want to continue Lincoln on the Move. We're bringing all of this forward because of the program expiring September 30th. And what happens if it doesn't get approved by the voters and we lose $18 million annually? It'll take up to 22 years to complete those 63 projects instead of the 6 years that we've seen recently. We would be going from about 11 projects annually to 2 or 3 projects annually. So we would be waiting longer for those projects. We will have higher costs because of the inflationary growth that is growing each year at that 5% rate on average. And we won't be able to continue the growth that our city is seeing on the edges of town because there'll be limited funds to complete those new streets and reach those new areas. So with the 3 resolutions before you today, putting the question on the ballot for April 8th, a resolution freezing the inflationary adjustments to the impact fees. Again, that won't happen if it's not approved by voters. And a resolution creating an interlocal with the RTSD. And again, that would dissolve if voters don't approve that. So today we're asking City Council after today's public hearing that we close the public hearing, but delay vote. These are resolutions, so normally you could vote on them today, but I anticipate that there will be questions or some additional information you and others may want. So we're asking to close the public hearing, but allow another week for any additional feedback, any questions, and then we would respectfully ask you to vote in favor of all 3 resolutions next Monday, February 3rd, and allow the community to decide if they want to continue Lincoln on the Move. So happy to answer questions now. I think there's people behind me that might also have this, so I'm happy to stick around and answer questions afterwards.
Thank you, Director Elliott.
Thank you.
Very, very good presentation. All right, councilors, are there any questions?
Not at this time, no.
I think I have one question. Director Elliott, I appreciate all the pieces that you said continue the program.
Yes.
I just wanted to, and especially the quadrants, that the sort of the philosophy behind it continues. But does the Advisory Council on Transportation Act, does that continue?
Yes, thank you, and I apologize for not. I'm not sure how I missed that. Yes, so currently under the current program and under the current ballot that was approved, there is a community organ group, so the Advisory Committee on Transportation, that is made up of community members. What they do is they oversee, they refine, they take what the ballot says, and they provide additional guidance on that. And then they also look at all of the projects that we propose, they review, and then ultimately give their blessings to that or ask us to look at different things. That would continue as well, along with all of the other regulations and guidelines.
All right. Thank you very much.
I apologize, I completely skipped that part.
Yeah, they've been very integral in the success of this program. I just wanted to clarify that they're still
Yes,
involved.
the advisory committee, still made up of community members. That would not change, and they would continue to oversee it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And if there's no questions from counselors, then I would like to open this public hearing
Thank
and
you.
hear from everyone who's come this evening to speak on this issue. All right. We have 2 microphones, so when we can have.
Yeah, you can stand over there while I won't be very long.
Okay. Welcome.
My name is Richard Schmeling. I live at 445 Honor Drive, apartment 324, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68510. That's out on the VA campus.
All right, Mr. Schmeling.
And you have had the God's eye view of this whole thing that's being talked about. I'm going to give you the ants eye view.
Okay.
Because ever since 2015, I have not owned an automobile. I ride the city bus system, the StarTran bus system. Now I have mixed feelings. Part of me says, let's not fix these streets. Let's make it hard to drive so maybe people will park their cars and use the public transit system. The problem with that approach is that those buses have to use the same streets that those cars are using. I can tell you from personal experience, our streets on some of our bus routes are so bad that we are beating our buses to death. And I heard an amen on that. That's another writer. One of the routes is the Veterans Hospital Route 54 that goes along A Street. I ride that on at least every other day basis. I often ride the 53 route, which goes along Randolph Street. And it just beats the buses all to heck. And those buses are expensive. And we don't want to have those buses fall apart before their normal time is up. I rode on the 53 route one time, and there are patches on top of patches on top of patches. And the driver is trying to miss the bad spots, and he's going back and forth within the lane, and finally he says, I give up. This street is so bad, I can't miss them all. You people are just going to have to bump around. And believe me, as a writer, it's not a pleasant experience. So I don't know how we got here. I'm not pointing the finger at the present administration or any other administration. We just have a backlog, and we can't ignore it. We need to address it, and the way to address it is to do what Liz Elliott suggests we do, and that is let's extend that quarter-cent sales tax. And I strongly urge you to do it on behalf of myself personally and on behalf of Citizens for Improved Transit. Now, there are going to be some people that are going to speak against it, I'm sure. I challenge them to ride those bus routes and see what it's like to have to go on those terrible streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmeling. Next.
Good evening. My name is William McCoy, and I'm a lifelong resident of Lincoln, Nebraska. I live at 1800 North 52nd Street here in Lincoln, and I'm here this evening to speak in opposition to the quarter-cent sales tax. Firstly, I want to make it very clear that I support the regular upkeep and maintenance of our city streets. And I share a lot of the gentleman's comments about the fact there's a lot of patchwork out there making it very difficult to navigate many of our streets today. You know, aside from public safety, I think maintenance of our city streets should be the highest priorities of our local city government. You know, and the mayor has said in this LOTM process, you know, that if this is not passed, you know, we're going to risk public safety. We're going to delay response times for our emergency responders and things of that nature. And that kind of takes me back to my first question that I have for you this evening, and that is if the voters had never approved this back in 2019, and more importantly, if they don't approve it, if you should decide to pass this resolution next week, where does that leave us as a city? That's my really major concern this evening. Just to refresh your memory, it only passed by 650 votes the last time it was approved. And if this thing is so important, why did so many people in the city of Lincoln vote against it? I kind of look at it from a different perspective. You know, when we think about our taxes and what we're paying in taxes, you know, we faithfully pay our wheel taxes, our fuel taxes, all the taxes associated with owning a vehicle. If we're a homeowner, we pay our property taxes. If you're a business owner, you're paying your property taxes as well. And, you know, when our AC goes out, when our furnace goes out, when the roof has to be replaced, we have to make do within the budgets that we have to replace those items because that's our infrastructure, and we have to take care of that on a regular basis. So my question is, why can't city government do that? You know, I was looking at the LAOTM website, Lincoln on the Move website, and it said that $5 million of Lincoln's general fund is allocated towards street maintenance, with a multitude of other revenue streams being utilized to achieve a $60 million annual budget. Lincoln's total budget for the next 2 years is over $700 million. And I seem to recall somewhere reading that our tax-funded portion of that is about $282 million a year. So my third question is why can't more of the city's general fund budget be allocated towards street maintenance? I think right now it's like $5 million. Why can't more of that budget be allocated towards street maintenance? When you adopted the budget back in August of 2024, it was mentioned that nearly $50 million would be allocated towards streets in the first year, and that reportedly was a $3 million increase. However, based on local news coverage at the time, I seem to recall no mention was ever made about the quarter-cent sales tax. So when you adopted the budget back in August, I believe it was, I don't recall anything ever being mentioned about continuing this quarter-cent sales tax. So you set the budget for the next 2 years, but yet, nothing was ever discussed at that time about continuing the tax. So if the lack of having the quarter-cent sales tax actually jeopardizes our community growth, our quality of life, and even our public safety, as the mayor has quoted, when you were approving the budget for the next 2 years, why wasn't that more of a priority? I mean, those seem to be really important issues to the community. But in adopting the budget, apparently that wasn't considered as much as maybe it should have been. So kind of brings me to the perception that many people in the community have, and that is, why isn't more, that really the issue is not more a resource problem, but maybe it's more of a management priority and spending problem. Now, I want to confess, I didn't vote for the quarter-cent sales tax when it was up for vote the last time, but I do know of many people that did, and they did so not because they agreed with it, but they just did it out of sheer frustration because of how bad the streets are in the city of Lincoln. They've just been neglected for so long, and the upkeep has been so inconsistent, and replacement has been so put out there that so many people have just been very frustrated by that.
Mr. McCoy, you reached your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And before we continue, would the folks with signs please lower your signs and do not raise them again?
This is the agenda.
I understand that you've written a sign on the back of the agenda, but we do have council rules, and so I'm going to ask you to lower them.
Read the agenda while it's going on.
Thank you for lowering them.
I had a quick question for Mr. McCoy.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is okay, Mr. McCoy. There's a question for you, please.
I appreciate you coming down. I guess the question that I have is, since we're not debating, if it should be approved or shouldn't be approved, but instead the question is, should we allow residents to have the choice? I think you had some compelling statements in your testimony, but is there in your mind a reason why we should not allow residents to have the choice to vote on this?
I think, from my perspective, I think it's fine to allow residents to have a voice on it. And my question to you, though, as a city council, is why do you want to put it on the backs of voters to approve or deny something that should be a fundamental expectation for this community, that we have great city streets? If it doesn't pass, are you going to throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, well, we did the best we could? It didn't pass, so we're not going to have this $18 million to spend like she wants to do? Or are you going to go back and look at your budget and say, how can we re-examine how we're spending our money? If we truly need that $18 million, let's find some other places in the budget we can pull it out of. That's what we as homeowners have to do. We have to look at our budgets, and we have to, if the air conditioning breaks, if the roof has to be replaced, we have to go find those dollars within our existing budget. I mean, I'm not going to let my roof go to pot. I'm not going to not replace my air conditioner. Why should it be any different with our city streets? You, the budget, the mayor, should be looking at that and re-examining what can we do differently, and how we're spending our money to meet that very basic need of having great city streets. We haven't had them for a long time. And it's not your fault, and it's not necessarily the mayor's fault, but I think you have something to say about how we can change the future. And I think that's where the problem is. And I think that's the perception the community has, is that we don't have more of a priority on this issue to get a handle on it. And I think it's going to continue to be a problem if we continue to approach it like we are.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for
Thank you.
sharing.
Ms. Kinsey?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. Mr. McCoy's idea is too sensible. The whole thing is that you don't have to ride a bus to find bad streets. All you have to do is ride your car over them, and you'll find that they are not what they should be. And of course, it's real easy to pick people who believe what you want and call that a citizen's a community input from citizens, because actually it's just a window dressing for what you want. Now, you throw out a lot of things. 30% visitors pay for, you can save money, et cetera, et cetera. It's just palaver. It means nothing. And in 2 weeks, you want people to make a decision about whether to put it on the ballot when they don't even have any information for that. The streets have been bad. I would say, I've been here since '89. They've been bad and complained about since that time. Supposedly you put in the wheel tax so that they'd be improved. No, that's never happened. The bus system is a mess. Half of the time, or maybe more, nobody is riding on them, or there might be 2 people. So that needs to be redone also. Of course, that's another issue. But you could save money if you had an idea or a plan about the bus system. You would might have money for the streets. The city still has COVID funds. The city also has a fund called the occupation tax that is flush with money. Nobody looks at that. No, we want to keep that for other things that we want, because city streets don't matter really in this city. We want bike lanes, and we want parks and so forth. And the people who drive the city streets be damned. Basically, there is no real plan about the city streets. You just figure people will put up with it and suffer with it. 30% is paid by visitors. How can you prove that? 65% goes to all quadrants. I'd like to see proof about that. It looks like they've gone to Pine Lake with roundabouts, or off 84th roundabouts. There's no sensible thought about what's going on here. And why would you put a huge grant from 33rd and Cornhusker and lump it with the rest of the city tax, so that people will feel like, oh gosh, they're really getting something here, when actually it should be a separate issue. It's just too bad that government does not live like a human being in the United States. It's really easy to spend other people's money. It's really easy to be high and mighty about how I can throw out money for this and that and the other, and nobody will pay any attention. Or I can make a pitch the next time I'm up for election. It's really sad that we're getting nowhere as far as that's concerned.
Ms. Kenzie, your time is up. Thank
So
you.
what we say is vote these people out and get some other people in there.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Lori Waters. I live at 1920 South 24th Street, 68502 here in town. I did not vote for the tax on the streets, not because I don't think the streets should be improved. I feel very strongly that we need to improve the streets that we have and not bother with new ones. The reason I voted no was because the language says not less or at least 25% will be spent on new roads. And according to Director Elliott, just 25% was spent on new roads. And that's great, but the language doesn't say that. The language says that I can't spend 24% on the roads, but if I want to, I can spend 26 or 27 or 28. I'm a retired math teacher, so I know less than and more than. If the language said not more than 25% will be spent on new streets, I would have voted for it. Now, in this new diagram, in Part D, it says not less than 1.5% will be spent. And again, for me to vote for it, it would have to say not more than 1.5%. And I really wish that the 1.5% was being taken out of the 25% instead of the 75%, because I really think the streets of Lincoln need to be improved. And if that language is changed, you'd win my vote, because I think it's important. But A Street, you drive down A Street, it's horrible. Randolph Street is horrible. I love Cotner. You've done a wonderful job on Cotner. It's amazing. I just wonder how long it will last with our weather. But I do believe people should vote, and I voted no, and I wanted you to know why I voted no, and I tell all my friends they can spend more than that if they want to if you vote for this, because it says at least instead of at most. Words make a big deal. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Waters.
Hello, I'm Gary Nelson, and I live at 5841 Margot Drive here in Lincoln, and I've spoke to the board in the past and will continue to do so in the future. I would vote no on these two, all three of them. I guess I didn't know the railroad was in with the other. And part of it is Liz, and forgive me, you were talking about inflationary growth. I don't think you know what the taxpayers have to deal with. I have a person that I know, young teacher, they had a $600 increase in their monthly payment. Why? Insurance and taxes. They were kind of foolish. They spent more for the house 3 years ago than they needed to. And so now they're in the process of listing their home so that they can get into something cheaper so they can make their budget work. And it is just not roads, it's everything. I mean, how many years has the assessed valuation of the homes come up, and it's 9%, 13%, 23%, 9%. And so every time, that's over 50%. And every time the rate may not go up, but my assessed value has gone up. So likewise, getting back to no inflationary growth, that's a lie, because my grocery store bill for...
Could you face us?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
My grocery store bill has gone up, just like everyone else's, and I'm paying $4 for a carton of eggs, but I'm paying another quarter cents on that. And so the situation is, yes, our roads need improvement, but where are the sources of money coming from? If it's only going to come from this $18 million, and yet we're only as was said, we're only spending $3 million from the city budget for it. That seems like, and I'm mistaken, so I would love for comment later to let me know what the true fact is. But we're causing poverty. In the school district, last year they talked about 48% of the students were on free and reduced, and this year it was 52. Here in January it come out. Well, it's all of those things. The fees for water, the fees for sewer, the fees for the roads, and now why is it that we're extending this instead of a 6-year evaluation period of whether it's doing what? We're now going to 8. Well, let's keep it at 6, because those things need to be reviewed. There can be catastrophic things happen in those 8 years. Well, at least in 6 years, you've got a little more time to figure out what maybe to do instead of extending it out to avoid possible conflicts. So what are some ways to increase it? Well, inflation has gone up. Why haven't city impact fees kept up with that? Why is it that the new person in a newer community, edge of town, they don't have to pay any more for their house because they have money to build a new house? So the construction company, that individual who makes that choice, if I want to go get a new car, I pay taxes on the increased value in that. But yet over here on a road and construction and a new development, they get by on the same taxes, city impact fees that they did before. And I didn't know that parks kind of come out of that city impact. So I disagree with that also. Label it for what it's supposed to be for so people know what it is. The other thing is TIF is another place that if the TIF money went from 10% to 9%, give everybody a % break on that is another way to kind of offset ways to fund. And so in TIF, I know each year, the last 5 years I've been keeping track of it, it's always over 100 million. Well, go from 10 to 9, there's another $1 million that are freed up for the taxpayers to pay what they need. Put the city, the council, those elections together with the other ones that was in the paper that was 700,000. My understanding is now that's got to go through, that's a state ordinance, that city elections are different from the state, federal elections. But it's a great thing to look at because what does it do? It frees up 700,000. Put 700,000 toward that. We have now a gambling casino outside of town, which usually isn't the rich people that are gambling. It's other people for entertainment and maybe the idea of getting rich quick, that type thing. And so where is that money being directed? That's another source, new source of money. Why isn't it, if we're 18's only paying for half of it, why aren't we directing some of that towards roads? There is so many solutions, and I would love to be on a committee to figure out some solutions for this, that we can hold our expenses down some. More sources, the better we are, in my opinion. And so, and then also too, is my understanding that the city has a large surplus fund. Well, if it's 750,000, 4% out of it in a CD in the bank, that generates 3 million. There's 1/6 of your 18 million, or maybe it's your 18 million plus 3 something. There is so many solutions that I think we just look at 1 or 2 solutions and not the whole picture of different sources and different ideas. Thank you very much. Any questions?
No, and pardon me for not paying attention to the clock.
Yeah,
for everyone
I kind of
else.
noticed
Pardon
that
me.
when it was it.
Sorry, I was.
Yeah, sorry.
I won't let that happen again. My apologies. I was paying close attention.
I'll take all the time you can give me.
No,
Okay.
no. That was my mistake once.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the council, happy to be here tonight. Kyle Fisher, 8231 Beechwood Drive. I'm here representing a trade association. We're the Realtors Association of Lincoln. 6 years ago, we strongly stood behind this measure. No change on our behalf. Still strongly supporting this measure, strongly supporting asking Lincoln voters for their approval, and we'll be directly asking our Realtor members to support it, and the public for that matter. You're a land use body, okay? You're a budgeting and land use body. You have spent, might I even say, close to the majority of your time over the last year or so on housing, affordable housing, road funding of all kinds. We have a housing shortage. You're no stranger to that. How do we solve it? Okay? In the built environment today, we cannot solve the housing shortage that we have. It's math, right? It's land area plus need with resources. We can't solve it. We have to grow and build our way out of this housing shortage. How do we do that? Roads, water, sewer. That's how we build and grow. And by the way, when you increase the supply of homes on the market, it drives down that price. We have a lot of concerns. You've heard from folks about growing costs, inflation, housing prices. This is how we attack that. And we use sales tax to do it, a small portion of our sales tax, to combat a problem that we haven't been able to get our hands around. I'm also here to stand in front of you and say I serve on the Advisory Committee for Transportation, the ACT Committee. I'm a living, breathing example of a human being who has reviewed the Lincoln Transportation and Utilities work, and I can stand behind it. I can give it my seal of approval, and I can tell you that the money has been spent as advertised. And I will say that maybe we should have said 6 years ago that we would come back and renew it, but I don't know that anybody knew what the world would be like 6 years from now, 6 years from then. Here we are. And now we're saying, look, we've done a good job. We've used a tool that we have in sales tax to grow revenue beyond what we would. Now let's do it for 8 years and come back here and have this very same passionate and needed discussion a little bit further down the road, because we've proved that we can do it. And I will just close with this and say, anytime that you can get the bus transportation people on board with the growth and development and roads folks, let's end the hearing and call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I am Jeannie McClure. I'm the Executive Director of ACEC Nebraska. That's the American Council of Engineering Companies. It's a business association representing engineering firms across the state. I also am the co-chair of the ACT Committee, so another living, breathing human that has participated on very robust debates about the plans that are brought before us when it comes to spending the quarter-cent sales tax dollars. I've lived in Lincoln for 35 years, and 30 of those at 2508 Rathbone Road, right next to Sheridan Elementary School. I would note that I am not an engineer, but I am an engaged Lincolnite, a community collaborator, and an engineering enthusiast. In 2018, Lincoln began investigating a path to better streets. And I had the pleasure of serving on that Citizens Transportation Coalition that was brought together to help identify that gap in funding and recommend solutions to fix our streets in Lincoln. And so as you're aware, those recommendations of that coalition were to propose a quarter-cent sales tax, and the council at that time approved that it would go to the voters, and they did approve it, even if it was by a narrow margin. We got it in place, and yes, we did not know what would happen 6 years from now. We had no idea that we would be able to raise the amount of funds, that they would steadily increase over time. At the time it was approved, think about it, we weren't able to collect the sales tax on, we were supposed to be collecting the sales tax on goods purchased in other places, like all of your favorite Amazon deliveries, but we weren't at that time collecting them all, right? You had to report them on your own. But that helped raise that. So not only are we getting sales tax that's coming from people coming in to our city, but all the rightful tax that should be collected on goods. So that helped increase it. So the quarter-cent sales tax has become known as Lincoln on the Move. It helps improve our streets, and it's served Lincoln well over the past 5 years, 6 years now. The City of Lincoln has used those funds effectively. As a member of the ACT, I can tell you that there is a lot of oversight and collaboration and advocacy regarding transportation infrastructure investments that are funded by the sales tax. We scrutinize them. We have robust debates. There are folks on that committee, I had no idea the places that citizens will go and look and learn about how to use their funds. And I would say the City of Lincoln does a really good job of being transparent in presenting those funds and making them readily available to you. In over the years that we've had the Lincoln on the Move, the progress has been truly amazing, and that nearly additional 163 lane miles of improved and new smooth streets have come from that. 65 projects, as Director Elliott said earlier, have been completed or are in progress. The program has literally changed our street landscape for the better. As I drive across town, I can feel a difference. And I know there are places that are yet to be improved. We're going to get them, right? They're out there for us. There's some big hills to climb, but with this additional funding, we're hoping to get to them fast. I would say that the progress is real and significant, but our job isn't done, and it never will be, right? When will we ever be to 100% done on streets? There won't be, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, doing your laundry, right? I'm wearing this today, and I have to wash it when I take it off, right? I'm never going to be 100% done with laundry. So unless I never change my clothes, if we never drive on the streets again, then they're done. If we never live in Lincoln, Nebraska, where we're freezing conditions, then maybe we'll be done. But not as it goes now. What I would ask you is to continue this good work of Lincoln on the Move and let the citizens of Lincoln vote to approve this quarter-cent sales tax going forward. And there's just one other thing I would like to say, or two. City of Omaha wishes they had this tool in place. I am in a lot of discussions with different partners across the community, across the state. They wish they had this kind of program, and they wish they had the support of their city council on something like this. And one of our folks before mentioned paying tax on eggs. We don't tax groceries in the state of Nebraska, so I just want to make sure that anyone listening to this understands that it doesn't matter how much you have to pay for eggs, you're not contributing to sales tax, the course of sales tax by that. So I'd answer questions if you had them.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Travis Filing. I'm the president of the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Our mission is to help create an environment where businesses can thrive and grow while ensuring that residents keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets. Our organization prides itself on the principles of low taxes, fiscal conservative, and prudent responsible spending. This is all to say that we wouldn't encourage our members to support this renewal unless we believed it was absolutely necessary to retain funding for our city streets. Since its founding, Lincoln on the Move has exceeded its projections. It has delivered tangible results, more repairs, and more streets citywide. One reason is that the program has made non-residents pay for more of our infrastructure. With Lincoln on the Move, everyone who visits Lincoln and participates in our local economy also contributes to our roads. I say this while acknowledging the financial burden that residents are feeling while this program is being considered for renewal. Inflation and the cost of living has caused many business owners to have tighter profit margins and many employees less purchasing power. But just as the inflation has affected the price of milk and eggs, it's also done so for the price of concrete and asphalt. In spite of any concerns over this renewal, losing a source of revenue specifically earmarked for street improvements will halt progress and multiply hazardous driving areas. People clearly want more to be done for Lincoln City streets, and losing $18 to $20 million a year dedicated to it isn't the solution. LIBA recognizes the cost-sensitive environment and financial challenges for businesses and residents, and this endorsement is not made lightly. Renewing Lincoln on the Move will provide consistent revenue that we need to address inflation-driven cost and increases and supports growth. We ask the City Council to vote in favor of this renewal and firmly commit to bettering Lincoln's economic health and overall well-being. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Eileen. Welcome.
All right, good evening. My name is Ann Post. I'm an attorney with Rumboldt Ludke Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of the Home Builders Association of Lincoln. My address is 1128 Lincoln Mall. So I'm here today to testify in support of these measures, specifically items 5B, 5C, and 5D on the agenda. The Home Builders Association supports this measure because streets are vital to grow housing availability in Lincoln. We cannot build new houses without new and improved streets. Investing in our streets supports increasing the inventory of homes in Lincoln, which in turn impacts Lincoln's housing shortage and helps to rein in Lincoln's spiraling housing costs. We are also supportive of item 5C on the agenda, which is specifically the freeze on impact fees that's associated with this measure. We appreciate this measure in an attempt to mitigate the impact of this sales tax on the cost of housing in Lincoln. Impact fees on each and every home, whether it be in South Lincoln, East Lincoln, the middle of Lincoln, are a minimum of $5,300. They can cost more depending on the house. This is a cost that's paid before a shovel hits dirt on the cost of every single house. It directly increases the cost of housing. So builders also pay sales tax on the cost of every house. So that means as those construction costs increase, sales taxes paid also increase on the cost of every home in Lincoln. And so this impact fee freeze is an attempt to, as we dedicate those sales, as we increase the sales tax, as we experience increases due to inflation, we ensure we do what we can to balance those costs to ensure that this sales tax increases housing availability with and has a minimal impact on the cost of housing in Lincoln. So to summarize, the Home Builders Association of Lincoln supports this tax because new streets mean more houses, mean more jobs, mean a stronger community in Lincoln. So with that, I would ask this council's support. I appreciate the time to testify in front of you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Post.
Good evening, Council Chair Washington, council members. Thank you for an opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm Jason Ball, President and CEO of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. That's at 1128 Lincoln Mall. I'm wearing two hats tonight. One is for the general membership of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and even though I could never make it in on the age requirement, I'm also appearing on behalf of the Lincoln Young Professionals. We've got a couple people with us tonight representing that arm of the organization as well. Their council has taken a look at this issue and shares the general membership's view on it. And our respectful request is this: your supportive vote and your supportive voice to please put this question to voters and then advocate that they renew this essential tool. You've heard from other speakers tonight. The Chamber shares their assessment that renewal of Lincoln on the Move will be important for new business growth and business expansion, for affordable home expansion and growth here in our community, new tourism capabilities that will help fund more Lincoln on the Move resources, and just a better driving experience for all of Lincoln's residents in general. We want to point out, again, this is not a new tax. This is a continuation of an existing tax resource, and one that our members believe has been a benefit to growing our community. I want to note again, like everyone else has, approximately 30% of this resource has come from non-Lincoln residents. This is the only type of funding stream that would be available to us that does not come from Lincoln residents in its entirety. As far as the increase from 6 years to 8 years, we know that that is something new. Again, in our assessment, this allows us a little bit longer planning period to think about longer term projects and projects which are larger in scope. They're going to impact more drivers and benefit us. To our fellow residents, I would just say, no matter where you live, if you have driven in Lincoln, you've benefited from Lincoln on the Move. For our residents that feel like Lincoln streets need some work and need some improvement, I would say to them in particular, this is an essential vote that they should be supporting if they want to see Lincoln streets condition improve and be maintained in the years ahead. We've also had some of our businesses, some of our members and other community members suggest that other resources, reserves, other tax resources available to the city should be leveraged in a new or different or greater way. And while at the Chamber of Commerce we hold that we need to take a yes and approach to these questions, we would like to see different creative funding. We would like to see more use of all resources available to build as many streets and roads as possible for all the benefits I've talked about. However, the question before this council tonight, the question before the voters in the spring, will only be whether or not we want to continue having available this important resource for street and road investment. And the simple fact is this: if Lincoln on the Move is not renewed, we will have less to invest in our streets and roads as a community. That is why this chamber is in such great favor of renewal of this important tool. Look, if we want a good driving experience, if we want homes to affordably be built in our city, if we want a growing economy and a thriving tourism industry, then Lincoln needs to continue this important transportation investment in our networks. Through Lincoln on the Move, the people of Lincoln are empowered to invest in their own community and their quality of life here. And this spring, we hope they will vote to reauthorize it. Thank you for your time. I would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Before anyone else testify, can I just respectfully request that audience members take conversations outside of the chambers during public hearings so I can hear the testifiers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Weber.
Hello, I'm Spencer Farley, and I'm here with a group from Strong Towns Lincoln. First of all, I just want to say I'm really happy to see the city identifying that deficit in funds for roads and working to address that. And the presentation was very helpful. That helped answer some of my questions and some of the key motivations, and I appreciated the clarification about the committee chairwoman that you made that prioritizes those projects. Some of my key concerns with the ballot measure as proposed is the 25% that has to go to new roads that can only be used on roads, and then pausing the impact fees. That seems like it incentivizes low density expansion around the edges of Lincoln. And Strong Towns Lincoln, we're a group that's passionate about how development practices, how we build our city relates to the long-term prosperity of a place. How we build today affects generations to come, and how we can keep Lincoln a great place to live. I've brought a case study. Do I need to push something too? Okay. I brought a case study. I'm not aware of a study like this being available for Lincoln specifically, but I've been in discussions with several people on how to make an analysis like this happen for Lincoln. So here we have nutrition facts, where they're looking at a particular...
If we could just see it.
Yeah, hold on a second, yeah.
Here, my apologies.
Nope, there's a way.
We can actually move the machine so that it...
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a zoom factor.
Letting the nerds get to me.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay, much appreciated.
Did I lose it?
Here we go.
And maybe minimize it.
Yeah, there we go.
Is that okay?
I can read that. Thank you.
So I'm not aware of an analysis like this for Lincoln, but I've been discussing with several people towards something like this. So first here we're seeing nutrition facts, as they label it, where they're looking at a particular parcel of land and the tax revenues that parcel brings in versus the costs the city would be obligated towards that parcel of land, infrastructure, services, so on. And then this case study was commissioned by Springfield, Missouri. And this is the overall picture of Springfield, Missouri. The black lines are net positive parcels, and the red lines are varying degrees of net negative parcels that cost more than they bring in tax revenue. And due to the prevalence of low density development, we see the city is at a $48 million deficit. And I think that plays into some of the original motivations of this tax, identifying that $33 million deficit and trying to bridge that gap, which I think is great. There's still more to bridge. And if this goes away, it would take decades to make up for the investment we'd be losing. So I suppose our concern, what we is if we do this in a way that incentivizes low density development, we might be setting ourselves up with more infrastructure liabilities in the future than new tax revenue that we're bringing in. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is very interesting. I've not seen this before.
Yes, I can provide more details on this kind of analysis if the committee is or if the council is interested.
Councilman Weber.
Chair Washington, can you just restate what group you said you're affiliated with?
Strong Towns Lincoln.
Strong
Towns.
Towns? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Towns, Lincoln. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Joe Dower. I'm a resident of the East Campus neighborhood, 3864 Orchard Street. A couple years ago, I started a bike bus. It's a way to get kids to school safely in the streets. And there's now 3 of them in the city. And so I'm standing here kind of as an advocate for the kids in the city, that the way they move around the city. I think we've focused a lot on how drivers move around the city, but there's a lot of people, not just kids, there's people without driver's licenses, people who are not as abled, who move around the city differently than we do. And I think that, so I really fully support the well, I fully support the tax, but I don't know if I really approve of the way it's being spent. I think that we need to invest more in thinking about alternative ways to move people. So thinking less curb to curb and more sidewalk to sidewalk. Think about curb bump outs. Think about alternative transportation. How do we get the bike lanes? Bike lanes are a lot less infrastructure cost down the line. So thinking about ways that we invest that money that's not just, I mean, I fully think we need this street improvements, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious, but for kids, that's not important. They need to be able to get around in other ways, and I think we need to be thinking about those. I agree with the previous speaker about thinking, putting less money towards new streets and investing where we are, what we have going. And I would wonder if there's a way to support these resolutions that would maybe focus on where the densest places are. I've been participating in the Vision Zero process and thinking about, if we're trying to move towards Vision Zero goals, we need to emphasize some of these, the really dramatically underfunded parts of the city that have been that way, and the racial inequalities that come along with some of that underfunding in transportation. So focusing the funding on those existing streets rather than investing in those new streets. So, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Dower?
Yes.
Just for clarification, would you explain what Vision Zero is?
Yeah, the Vision Zero process, there was the Vision Zero, Director Cheney, you could speak to it more than this, but I guess the city adopted the plan to reduce fatal and severe accidents by 60% by 2045.
Safe streets. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it.
I just want to say, Mr. Dower, you're doing a good job with the bike bus stuff. So thank
Okay.
you for your work on that. You're doing good work.
We'll get there. Yep.
Safe streets. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Richard Halverson, 6311 Inverness Road, and I come to expand on what the math major pointed out.
Okay.
There's no less than, but it doesn't have a max. I suppose all it takes is a city council vote to raise it to whatever they want, 10% or whatever. And that's kind of, I would like you to be more transparent on that maybe. And another question too, this is for 8 years. Now maybe I'm an optimist, but I would think they would have that project finished in less than 8 years. So what happens if that happens to the railroad allotment, if they finish it before the tax expires? All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Halverson. Is there anyone else who'd like to address council on these 3 measures? Ms. Fenner.
Yeah, hi, my name is Anastasia Fenner. I'm going to waive my address for my own safety. I just want to say that it is incredibly dubious to take the advice of, people that are pro-business, pro-city council. So there's this little thing called the Nebraska Accountability and Disclosure Commission. And I just want to show a little something, because there was a gentleman here who said that he was from the Lincoln Realtors Association. I find it real interesting how I'm pretty sure that they rub shoulders. Where are we? You see that? Let's see. Where are we? Yeah, there we go. Lincoln, Nebraska Realtors Pack. We're $10,000. Oh, look, another $8,000. I wonder who that could have gone to. Was that one Mr. Tom Beckius? So I don't really think that we should be trusting what the people that give over $20,000 to Tom Beckius for someone. Oh, also Olson is also on here giving him $1,000. So I don't know if the city of Lincoln, the people, of which at least 12% live in poverty, really can afford more taxes. It really seems like some incredibly corrupt people were given tens of thousands of dollars to be here, to give the builders, to give the realtors, whatever they want, right? I don't know how many times that we've sat up here and we've seen Tom Beckius and other people that have been bought off by realtors, a home pack, whatever it may be. I don't know, police unions. They get what they want. But when folks come to Lincoln or the city council and are like, yeah, this exact same tree, it ruined my car and I can't drive to work now. They're like, nah, we're not going to pay for that. But what we will do is we'll allow all this additional shit for anyone who gave us money to be on our campaigns. So I highly recommend people looking into the Campaign Accountability Act to see just who paid for these council people to be here. Because it's very clear that at least, one person who's perhaps up for re-election was given a lot of money to sit up here and okay things for Olson, to okay things for realtors, because I know poor Lincolnites. None of this helps them. I haven't seen any of this help them. I've just seen you give giveaways to businesses. There's nothing here that helps feed people. 1 in 5 kids going hungry in your city. Over $690 million cash on hand, and we have a homeless problem. But no, I suppose my major point is that you can't trust any of these folks to actually dole out any sort of cash in any sort of responsible way, right? Even the work that we have seen done on city streets, we've also seen those streets crumble in a very short amount of time. Where's the, guarantee of quality? Where's the guarantee that these roads are going to last more than 5 minutes? I don't know, but I do have a guarantee that Tom Beckius will vote for what Olson wants and what realtors want. And I imagine the rest of the city council will too, because they too were paid to be here. Not by us, not by me, not by, anyone watching, unless you're, a member of Olson. You watching, you get what you want. But the people who, accidentally get their vehicle whipped around by low-hanging telephone lines that the city would really rather not double check to make sure that they're the right height, they don't get what they need. Oh, but you're a developer? You want TIF? You want some sort of business adjacent thing, and you happen to give these folks the right amount of money, you might get what you want, but we won't get what we want. Where's the road quality in the workers' neighborhoods? Where's the road quality in the poor neighborhoods, right? Around disabled folks, around the elderly. It's very clear that they know exactly what they're doing, and it ain't for us. I mean, if the roads have been this bad since the 80s, that's before I was born, it really seems like these folks are not here for you or for I. So just know that there's someone with enough money, several someones, to give Tom Beckius about $28,000. But those people don't care about the streets. Because if they did, they would have been fixed by now. They've had the time. They have the resources. Where does it all go? Right in their pockets.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to address the council on these resolutions? Seeing no one else coming forward, we'll move into voting session.
Sandra,
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if I could ask Liz a question.
You may, Mr. Duden. Councilman, pardon me.
I'm not sure you're going to be able to show this, but I think it would have been beneficial tonight to see the results of the last 5-6 years, Lincoln on the Move, a graph, a picture, something that people can see so that they kind of see the results of it. I know this was an issue that when I ran my campaign, a lot of people had questions about it. And in that process, I learned that the initial Lincoln on the Move, the task force that worked on that initially wanted 5% and not 0.25, or a half, I should say, percent, because they said they needed $33 million a year over 6 years just to get caught up. So of course now that didn't happen. You ended up with 0.25%, so you had $16 million a year to work with. And at the same time, construction costs in this last 6 years went up 135%. And that's because of concrete, asphalt, labor, all those issues that played into it. So I'm very supportive of this, but at the same time, I think it would be nice to be a little bit more transparent and kind of show, here are the results, and this is where we want to go in the next 8 years with the road improvements.
When you say results, are we talking about the projects
Yes.
across town?
I think, there's the maps. This.
Ultimately,
Okay.
I
So
would
it's on the
go to the
website.
website.
It's on the website.
So if you
let's
go,
talk about that.
absolutely.
There's also the each year projects too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we do have a website because when I started this position almost 5 years ago now, one of the biggest questions that I always was receiving was, what are all the projects going on? And so we created a web page for all of our LTU projects that are going on, whether they're in design, whether they're in planning stage, whether they are in construction or have been recently completed. So if you go to lincoln.ne.gov, and the easiest way for me always is go to the search bar and type in projects. The first item that will come up is the LTU projects page. You can go to that project page. There is an interactive map, much like a Google map, that has every project there. You can select the years that you want. It goes back a couple years. It's just started a couple years ago. You can narrow down if you just want to see streets. You can add on water projects, wastewater project, bus projects, any LTU projects out there. You can narrow down if you're really interested on one project. You can go to that area. If you hover over it, it'll tell you what the area is. You can click on it once and it'll give you a short blurb about the project. You can click on it again and give you a detailed project page. On the project page of all of those projects will have a funding breakdown. So earlier I had mentioned that there are a number of things Lincoln on the Move funds do not pay for, such as trails, crosswalks, ADA ramps, those types of things. So you will see on that, this much was paid for Lincoln on the Move, this much was paid for by a different source, highway allocation funds, the wheel tax, any other funding that's out there, bond funds, grant funds. You can then go down and get into the schedule as
The reason I
well.
bring it up is that it's nice, I think, now to display that, because not all the voters can navigate through all those sites that you're talking about. I know my 5-year-old grandson could, but I think there's a lot of people, elderly, that don't have a laptop in front of them, that sort of thing, to be able to do some of that. So
And-
I was hoping that you could just kind of talk about
We
some
do.
of those movements.
And what I can do.
If you would just go back maybe tonight and show the 5 years or the 6 years.
Absolutely.
I realize they're separated by year.
There's my cursor. Okay, so we do have, let me just display it from here. So it's going to take me back. Ugh, of course it is. Sorry. make y'all dizzy here for a second. Okay, so year one, these are the projects that Lincoln on the Move funds were invested in. Again, that was the first year. It was the lowest amount received. Year two was the additional 15. So these are different projects, not reflected on the first year. These were the ones completed and invested in year two. Year three, almost 17 million. Year four, this was a little bit smaller because these were larger projects, as I think Mr. Fisher had said earlier, with the longer term, getting these larger projects, it takes a few more years to get them going. So these are in the outer years, year four. Year five, again, these are larger projects, but over $19 million across the community. And then this is what we have planned for year six investments. So these will take us through this construction season, and there's a few that will continue on because they are larger projects. They will continue on until 2026.
Okay, and do you have anything that kind of shows the new residential areas that Lincoln has expanded to?
Not on this map, but I could definitely get you to those. And you'd see a little bit on each one of these, kind of in the southernmost parts of the community. Year two has some of those newer areas.
Because the one thing I will say is that I think it would be nice, and I agree that we need to go into areas to expand our housing, make those lots cheaper, so that people can go in there with a family and raise a family. I know in Lincoln, when the Highlands was developed, the roads were there and people came. And I think that's what would happen now, is if we can expand more on those roads in the outer areas, we would increase that housing capability and hopefully lower the costs at the same time. So I would hope that we could find extra funding for that purpose alone.
Hey, and we do continue. We continue to find every alternative funding source that we can lay our hands on, and that I think is evident from our recent railroad crossing elimination grant that added an additional $66.7 million to allow us to get projects done. So we're not just relying on Lincoln on the Move sales tax, but we are looking for our highway allocations. In 2021 and 21-22, we also took the opportunity to invest in highway allocation bonds because the interest rates were low. So we did borrow funding at that point as well. So trying to find other sources of funding, because we do know we have a backlog of streets. This is something that we are being able to put significant investment in, and will continue to need to do so over the years. With Lincoln on the Move and the other one, other funding sources, we are in the last 6 years able to do over 10 projects a year compared to 2 or 3 that we were doing without it. So it really has made a significant difference, as you can see just in year 2, in every corner of our community.
It does kind of look like that the first couple of years you were able to do a lot, and then as the costs increased,
yes,
you weren't able to do as much. So.
Yes, and we also started to do some of those larger projects as well, which as costs went up, those became...
Need to actually enforce some of those deadlines too, so we don't have 84th Street issues when school starts next year.
We do our best to coordinate as best we can. Unfortunately, contractors and others, we run into some challenges.
They have a different calendar.
With a lot of projects going on, we are keeping them all very busy, and we will continue to coordinate the best we can. And we work closely with LPS, so we will continue to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I guess one thing I didn't mention on all of these, the Advisory Committee of Transportation, I know there was some questions making sure that we are investing the money the way that the voters wanted when they voted for this. That Advisory Committee on Transportation, they are there making sure we are following what the voters wanted, and that we are not going above and beyond what those percentages are. They're the ones that watch it very closely. We report to them monthly. All of our meetings and presentations are on our website because we do want to provide as much information. That's why we're bringing this back after 6 years to the voters to make sure that it was successful and that the voters of the community have that chance to tell us, was this successful, and do they agree that this should be continued? So with the advisory committee, we have that checks and balance to make sure that we are doing what the voters want. So thank you. And we would ask the council to delay voting. As we heard, there are a lot of interested people. There could be some additional information that you would like, and that would give us another opportunity for a week to get the information you need to make a decision next week. So,
Thank you,
you.
Director.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will move into the voting session on resolutions. We'll begin with 5A.
Okay. Item 5A is appeal by Jason Schwenk, approval of special permit 24009 to allow for a garden center on property generally located on the east side of North 56th Street between Bluff Road and Waverly Road, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson. Any discussion, councilors?
I just had a point of clarification. A yes vote on this would be supportive of the appeal, or a yes vote would be supportive of the project?
The second one. We vote on the project as if it was starting from fresh. So a vote yes is to move the project forward. But we need to be also clear what options or conditions we're putting on that, just so we pass what we want to pass if it passes. All right?
Thank you.
All right. So the project before us was passed by the Lincoln Lancaster Planning Commission, and it came with a set of conditions, conditions that spoke to landscaping, spoke to the driveway and sharing that driveway, making it 40 foot wide, and also creating a T or a clear distinction between what was residential and what is commercial. Yeah, Councilman Beckius.
Madam Chair, thank you to my colleagues for moving this forward. I would just like to reiterate again that I would like to make sure that the applicant is willing to work with their next door neighbor to make sure that they have input on the driveway situation. I don't know if I need to necessarily make that a part of an amendment unless others feel strongly, but I would hope that you would agree to that, and you're nodding, and you indicated at the Planning Commission that you would. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not an amendment, but I would like to suggest that is very important. I understand private property rights. I'm very respectful of those. But we have neighbors, and where we're not allowed to move excess water from our property onto our neighbor's property, I think it's also a kind thing to make certain that we're not moving other things onto our neighbor's property. I really appreciate your willingness to work with your neighbor on designing the driveway so it best fits both of your uses. Thank you.
I'd also like to say that if you do have problems with the speed of that intersection going forward, get in touch with me, because I think that's going to have to be addressed. Especially, that's why I asked about the proximity to the interstate and what have you. I think that speed probably needs to be dropped as more things get added into that area. We're going to have Google not too far away, and some other things. So I think eventually that speed limit's going to have to drop as well.
Okay. Madam Clerk, let's move forward.
Beckius,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And now on resolutions 5B, we have to do them separately. So we have 3 resolutions on.
Motion to delay?
Oh, we have a motion. Can we, City Attorney, Can we motion to delay as a block? Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to delay items 5B, 5C, and 5D until next week with public hearing closed.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, Carlson. Any discussion? All right, let's proceed to vote.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, we have ordinances, third reading, and related resolutions with continued public hearing on item 6A.
I'll call item 6A, change of zone 0706E, application of Lincoln Federal Bancorp, Inc. to amend the Wilderness Heights Plan Unit Development to add approximately 0.5 acres to increase the maximum number of single-family dwelling units from 270 to 279 with associated waivers on the property generally located at the southeast corner of South 42nd Street and Wilderness Hills Boulevard.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Council. Thank you for having me this evening. Thank you for the first delay to hearing to this evening. That was a nice request that I could do these together. Didn't realize it was behind Lincoln on the Move. I would have maybe second thought, but
A snack, perhaps.
all is good. Thank you. So I'm here before you this evening because we have an amendment to a PUD. A PUD, Planned Unit Development, is a zone by ordinance, and so it has to come before you for any particular changes, particularly because there's a change to the perimeter of the PUD that we've suggested and submitted. Basically, what this is Lincoln Federal Bancorp has approached Southwood Lutheran Church to purchase a portion of their property. With the changes, it changes a couple of dynamics. Right now, I've got a little map here. I'll see if this works here.
Takes a little bit.
Can I? How do? Yep. This one's new to me, so
It's newer, Brad,
Yeah.
so.
thank you. Yeah, this will work just fine. It's a little light, but yep, that's. So the PUD, what's highlighted here is the church, and that's what I was going to kind of concentrate on here. Relatively, everything inside the PUD with the development and single-family homes and everything are going to stay the same, except for a couple of things. The parcel here is being purchased at that location today as a detention cell. That detention cell discharges across what would be the middle of the church property. And we are proposing to actually move that drainage to the east, where this second parcel is highlighted, where there's a secondary drainage way. That drainage way exists. It's a little bit larger, actually. And so what we've proposed to the church is it will eliminate one by enlarging the secondary, second easterly detention cell. That will hopefully be a win-win solution for the church, because that will provide a little bit more flexibility for them to eliminate drainage across their property where they've suggested, well, maybe we would like to, expand the church, parking lots, add a second building, and hopefully that would eliminate and provide a little bit more flexibility for them in the future. Lincoln Federal would then backfill that detention cell with some additional lots by eliminating that detention cell. In addition to that, along that easterly drainage way, which, by the way, now qualifies as a corridor. So it drains 40 acres or more, and so that drainage way would be protected anyway. A drainage easement and then a sanitary sewer easement is being proposed and negotiated with them to cross their property as well, where the original plan for the southeasterly quarter of Wilderness Hills, excuse me, I said Wilderness Hills, Wilderness Heights PUD would go through a portion of the Grandale preliminary plat had previously been approved. So this would kind of expedite some development options for Lincoln Federal at the same time. So the real reason is the expansion of the PUD requires me to be here tonight because we're changing the perimeters of that, which would extend the zoning. But we went through this with the church. They actually voted yesterday as a congregation, passed it unanimously, and so we proceeded on here today with you. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
All right, there may be some questions. Councilman Shob.
Maybe.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, thanks for coming forward. I've got a Google Maps up here, and I'm looking at your drawing and their drawing, and I can't see the eastern parking lot on your drawing. It's kind of faint. I think it's there, but I
their
don't.
easterly parking lot would be right here. It is really faint. Their building sits about right there. If you can see my blue sketch now.
Yeah.
And that would be their parking.
So it's just a little north, just a small section north of that parking lot, and a small section east of that parking lot.
Yep.
That need to be added to your PUD.
Yeah, the actually only pieces that are being added to the PUD are these, what would I call them, like pink or
Yeah.
kind of, that's the only things that are actually being added because the westerly portion, the little sliver, will become residential lots.
Okay.
And the eastern one will be a detention cell that will facilitate collection of drainage for the entire kind of east half of the development.
I appreciate that. Again, looking at a satellite view, there appear to be two drainage paths there. One that kind of wraps around the property, then one that kind of trails off to the east.
Yeah,
Am I reading my map wrong? Yeah.
There's a drainage way, I'll kind of put it like this.
Yes.
And then there's a garden down here, and it kind of goes around the garden, and then there's a heavily treed area, and that's a flood plain area through that section. So
I see that.
the real thought, this actually, it's kind of been almost years in the making, if you will. We actually approached them a couple of years ago, they've got a lot of excess land, and they said, well, we've got some plans for the church. And so when we came back forward, we tried to come up with a plan that would address and try to make it desirable for them to
This will improve
continue.
on that drainage where you want
Yes,
it.
yeah, yep,
That was kind of, thank you I appreciate you indulging me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Marshall? I don't see any.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, we can vote on this now, if there's no other discussion. Oh, we do have continued public hearing. So if there's anyone here who'd like to address the change of zone for Wilderness Heights planned unit development, adding a half acre, please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward, we can move to the voting session.
Item 6A is change of zone 07060E, application of Lincoln Federal Bancorp, Inc. to amend the Wilderness Heights planned unit development to add approximately 0.5 acres and to increase the maximum number of single-family dwelling units from 270 to 279 with associated waivers on the property generally located at the southeast corner of South 42nd Street and Wilderness Hills Boulevard, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, Carlson, is there any discussion with council members? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. All right. And the next group, ordinances, third reading.
Item 7A is text amendment 24013, request to the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.02.020A by adding a definition for annual attraction event, Section 27.06.060, Agriculture use group of change agricultural attraction from a permitted conditional use to a permitted special use. Section 27.06.150, commercial recreation and entertainment facilities, use group to change amusement license to annual attraction event. Section 27.62.030, agriculture use group to delete language regarding agricultural attraction permitted conditions, and section 27.62.120, commercial recreation and entertainment facilities, use group to amend the language to annual attraction event and requiring those events to register with the county clerk by amending chapter 27.63, special permits, to add a new section number 27.63.360 entitled agricultural attraction allowed by special permit in the AG district under certain conditions. Introduced by Beckius.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? See no discussion, Madam Clerk?
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Let's proceed.
Sections 8 is resolutions, first readings, items 8A through 8F. Section 9 is our pending list, items 9A through 9D.
All right. As noted at the start of the meeting, tonight is the last meeting of the month, and so it's open for public comment. Those items that were not on tonight's agenda and not scheduled for an agenda in the future may, anything other than those things may be discussed this evening. So if anyone would like to come forward and address council on an item, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Fenner, and I'm obviously going to waive my address for my personal safety. So today, January 27th, I've seen so many videos of people in Gaza finally being able to return home, sort of. Some will never return home because they're dead and we killed them. Because Lincoln, Nebraska, and this city council, except Tom Duden, who is a lazy fuck and has now walked away and is not here to hear this.
Your
I will not watch
language.
any language because it is my First Amendment right to do so. If you have an argument with that, go argue with someone else. I'm reclaiming my time.
They are televised.
That's excellent. I'm so glad we're televised because I would love for the people to know that Sandra Washington personally has blood on her hands. Those machines out there, you know what they say? Those vending machines, they say property of Pepsi Cola. Are you aware, which I know you're aware because there have been people coming here for over a year telling you about this genocide. And you and Tom Duden, who just walked away because he doesn't want to hear it, very professional of him, yeah, they have blood on their hands. They, on purpose, gave money to a company that they know is doing a genocide. They have been made aware. They personally do not care about any of their neighbors, whether they are far away or whether they are the homeless neighbors that they refuse to make eye contact with, right? The day that people finally, some of them, are returning to rubble is the day that city council members, because that's how genocide works in the USA. It's tiny things that make it feel like it isn't that bad. It's buying a soda for Pepsi. It's buying these bullshit snacks that no one needs. You don't have to give your money to genociders. But also, I'm pretty sure that perhaps Sandra Washington is also up for re-election. And I want everyone to know that when we came to her and explicitly explained how Lincoln, Nebraska is complicit in genocide and how General Dynamics on Superior and Industrial Avenue makes 2,000-pound bombs that kill children, her immediate response was, "You want me to shame a business?" So that's what this city council does. They're too busy, giving their business buddies, they're too busy buying Pepsi to really care. So my advice would be to not listen to them lie and to not give them your vote or support, because it's clear that they're not here to support us, to support people. They're here to support businesses. So much so that they can't stand their own agenda just saying free Palestine. How dare we, I don't know, advocate for people that our city is continuously harming? How dare we advocate for those people? But yes, strive for civility in our rhetoric here at the city council meeting. Strive for these rules to make sure that we effectively kill people. We want to make sure we effectively genocide, right? We want to effectively destroy Snell Hill. We want to effectively do, homeless sweeps. Because like the city council, their boss, Daddy-O, Larian, she also is complicit in this. She was there for those homeless sweeps, and these folks are here to, not care. So I don't know how you can go about laughing, making tiny jokes when you know that there's people dying in your streets, when you know that there's people that are malnourished and hungry, and there's people literally right now sleeping under a bridge in this very city. But no, Sandra Washington and Tom Duden would rather on purpose buy products that support genocide. That is what your city council members do. They put forth legislation, maybe not legislation, because this isn't a legislature, but they put forth stuff that destroys Snell Hill. They don't apologize for it. They don't try to fix it. Oh no. The mysterious little timer is blinking at me to stop bitching at the city council so they can go enjoy their incredibly boring, mediocre lives. Well, the rest of us go struggle, which we will, continuously. Have a terrible night, y'all. Free Palestine. Free your minds.
Good evening. Is there anyone else here to address council? Then seeing no one else can come forward.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second, Beckius. The motion was Duden. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Duden,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We're adjourned.